photographs, I'll need to find them. Barkham also tells me that he joined the BNP after he and his family were attacked by Asians. He says joining helped him channel his anger.
I used to sit at home at night, mate, wide awake, upset about it, you know what I mean? Shaking with anger and thinking there's nothing I can do about this. Honestly, I used to sit at home all night, well not all night, but you know, I used to sit at home in bed thinking, fucking hell, where's it going wrong, mate? You know, can you stop this? And then once I started doing this, like, I sort of set out a release that. Because I'm doing something about it.
I'm intrigued and ask a lot of questions. I then receive bad news from Andy. I've asked too many.
He telephoned me and he said, I need to meet you straight away. He said, we've got a problem with that Jason guy. So that's when I grabbed my kit together and went and recorded what he had to say, and this is it.
The thing that really stands out about him, like asking me all sorts of things that you wouldn't normally ask. He's fucking about with his right hand all the time inside his coat. And the fact that he's up here, no one knows who the fuck he is. He's got this accent I've never heard of. He's from Nottingham. Well, jump to conclusions yet, right? What we'll do, we'll fucking keep an eye on him. I mean, if I didn't say anything and he just carried on and he did fucking start doing things like that, I thought, fuck me, I should have not noticed that earlier on. I'm glad you told me.
See, the thing is that what everybody's paranoid about.
They are.
Especially about members, their own members.
When you get new members, people get paranoid and they think they're infiltrators.
Andy persuades Barkham there's nothing to worry about, but we decide to back off. I'll need to be more careful if I'm to persuade him to tell me the truth about what happened during the Bradford riots. To win the trust of BNP members, I have to join their campaign teams. Their tactic is to seize on genuine local issues and exploit them for their own ends. In Keighley, 10 miles outside Bradford, even though the police have investigated both white and Asian men for sex attacks on teenage white girls, the BNP focuses on reports that the first suspects were Asian.
The suggestion that men are seeking out schoolgirls for sex would be controversial in any community. 16% of the Yorkshire town's 70,000 population is Asian, but the claims about what's happening here in Keighley are particularly incendiary.
Being new leaves me outside the inner circle. While I'm working my way in from the bottom, Andy is privy to high-level conversations with Nick Griffin about how the BNP should deal with the allegations in Keighley.
Nick Griffin and I spoke about if there was any meetings coming up in Bradford. And he actually said, what about Keighley? And I said, well, it's a little bit tender in Keighley. I said, tensions are running a little bit high. I said, it'll probably kick off if we had a meeting in Keighley. And he actually said, oh, good. If we get a riot out of it, we'll walk the election. And I was just absolutely gobsmacked with, the chairman of the BNP saying that to me.
A meeting is called in Keighley 5 weeks later.
Right, folks! Thank you. Now, the last two meetings in Keighley, you'd have thought we had a bunch of football hooligans in the meeting. This is not the way the British National Party behave, or its supporters, or its members. Can you please give a right good BNP welcome to Nick Griffin, the chair of the party group.
This town should be on everybody's lips as the place where those paedophile drug rapes went on. Because 60 of our children, 60, well, one is too many, but 60 is a massive rape wave. It's astounding. I'll tell you, there's two reasons. The first is that our police force and our elected governors haven't done a damn thing properly about it. And the second is that their good book tells them that that's acceptable. Now, that sentence could get me 7 years in prison, and if I actually went into detail about what's in the Quran, we'd be here all night, so I'm not going to. But if you doubt it, go and buy a copy, or look it up on the internet, and you will find verse after verse after verse, which says that you can take any women you want, as long as they're not Muslim women, any woman that your right arm can own. That's the sword arm. It's the fighting arm. It's the arm you hit a white lad with a baseball bat with you. That's the sword, the fighting arm. Any woman that they can take by force or guile is theirs. if they get a non-Muslim girl and they get her pregnant, then her community doesn't want her, and the child generally grows up a Muslim. And that's the way that this wicked, vicious faith has expanded from a handful of cranky lunatics about 1300 years ago till it's now sweeping country after country before it all over the world. And if you read that book, you'll find that's what they want. And Keighley should be known all over Britain for the fact that it's the place where this particular part of their plan, not the riots, all the rest of it, this one has come out here more than anybody else. And it's not that.
When Nick Griffin said his speech could land him in prison, I wanted to know if that was true, so I showed a senior barrister my footage. He says that Griffin's words are threatening, abusive or insulting, and being delivered to the party faithful are designed to stir up racial hatred, a crime under Section 18 of the Public Order Act. Griffin already has a conviction for stirring up racial hatred. The maximum sentence is 7 years in prison. Griffin's interpretation of the Quran has also been condemned by Muslim scholars as wildly distorted and out of context.
There's no knight on a shining, big horse with shining armour going to come to the rescue, kill the Islamic dragon. There isn't anybody. And if you've got young children in your family, or teenage girls, or slightly older boys, or pensioners, then you've got to stand up and do something for the British National Party, because otherwise they will do for someone in your family. That is the truth. For saying that, I tell you, I would get 7 years if I said that outside, if I said that in front of people who go and report it to the police. You've heard the truth, you know the truth. Please, please, make up your mind this instant. You are going to do something to help.
It's very dangerous to suggest that there are dragons to be slayed and that the BNP are the only people who can do so, when it is clearly just demonizing one section of our society with a view to creating hatred and also, I think, spreading violence against them.
2 days after the meeting, I'm told to go to a car park in Keighley to join a BNP campaign team. We're given leaflets titled Mothers Against Paedophiles. It's a front for the BNP.
As you might be able to see, there isn't one mention of the British National Party on there at all, and members of the British National Party have told me that this leaflet has been produced by the chairman, Nick Griffin.
During the course of its campaign in Keighley, the BNP deliberately failed to mention that police suspects are white as well as Asian. It also exaggerated the scale of the problem.
If you've got tension in any area, BNP will go to that area, peddle its lies, put out some leaflets, tell people, yeah, you've got to be scared because X, Y and Z's going to happen. Then they step back. Then if there is any tension after that, if there's a big, large-scale disorder, once it's over and done with, then they step forward and say, told you so, we were right, but it's actually them who whipped it up in the first place. And that's how they work.
It's 3 weeks since Stuart Williams first told me he dreams of attacking mosques. I see him again at a meeting at Andy's house to discuss the local election. Long-time Bradford activist Arthur Bentley is also invited.
Hang on, I've got a drink out before. You've still got your World War II gun. What sort is it?
One of them what they used in English Army.
I'll email back the council.
It's a what?
British Army. What do I call it?
I'll leave him out.
Lee Enfield?
Yeah.
I'll leave him.
The Enfield? Bloody hell.
Fucking Lee Enfield. Fucking Harry Enfield using it.
It fires bullets.
Does it? You got a licence for it?
What about the taxi ranks? Has there been the uproar for that?
Licence is short back in here. Off of Car Lane. You can hit every mosque in Bradford from there.
Why don't we take a photograph of that?
Yeah. Just put a big finger pointing at all mosques and say, getting nearer to you.
Just keep it community for now.
You're going to have to run me up to Car Lane and have a look.
You can see right across Bradford and Bingway.
See what it is? What it is with these people in Idle, right? They're like typical middle class or liberal whites, you know. On the one hand they say, oh, we're not racist, right? But as soon as there's no Pakis are coming in, they'll go, oh, fuck you know what I mean? It's some change the tone then. So it's important that we keep it, you know.
Why don't we just have a big headline, no packies in our area, and right underneath. We don't put BNP on it, we'll just put them out.
What do you think?
Andy and I tried to keep the conversation focused on the elections, but there's no holding Williams back.
What are you going to do with them?
Shoot packies. That's all I want to do, shoot packies.
Listen,
I'm waiting for war.
Listen, you can't fucking do this. If you're going to be a councillor, you can't talk fucking nonsense.
You can't stand up in the chamber and say that, can you?
No, but I can look at them and think, you'll be dead soon, you Alright, then once we've taken over, then can we show them?
This time I'm sure it's not the drink talking. Although I press Williams many times to see the gun, he ends up telling me it's a wind-up. But in all he tells me 24 times that he wants to kill Muslims and attack mosques.
Alright, bud, I'll meet you in a minute. Cheers, pal. Alright, bye. Bye. That was Andrew Sykes. He's got word this evening that there could be a bit of trouble at British National Party meeting. Apparently the landlord and landlady have received a number of threats along the lines that if you're going to hold this meeting, then we're going to come round and we're going to trash your pub.
The threat is taken seriously. Several BNP members have already told me about being attacked by suspected left-wing opponents. They're also paranoid about being infiltrated by the police or journalists.
Steve Barkham, he's telling me some terrible stuff, just awful. Just going on about attacking Asian lads. The proudest thing he'd ever done, the finest thing he'd ever done was kicking somebody in the head. And I don't know if I got that on film or not. I haven't had an opportunity to look back on it, but I don't think I did. I think they're really suspicious about me.
Hi, bud. Hey, Dave. Hi, Paul. Hi, Linda.
I have to go into the toilet to change my bloody tapes and stuff, and then Steve Barkham was there.
Having a piss. Huh? I don't like your eyes.
Say, oh, what are you doing in that cubicle, Jason? You think, oh, Christ, they're on to you. And you think,
They're coming around, I've got to fucking get you. A CIA, they're coming.
bloody nightmare.
FBI's watching you. Arthur's watching me, I know that.
I get away with it, but Barkham makes me so jumpy I forget to change my tape. When he later confesses to attacking an Asian man during the Bradford riots, I have nothing to record it on. I'm still under suspicion, and there's even more bad news. Andy's been attacked. I'm worried the BNP are onto us both. I want to talk to Andy, but it's not safe to take a camera to his home, so I use my hidden one.
How you feeling?
Bit rough.
Oh yeah?
Got a brew?
Yeah, I could see.
This guy just got me from back, and he got me in like a bear hug. But he had his finger and thumb in my windpipe. And then his knees went into the back of my knees and dropped me to my knees. And he had a right grip of me, nearly shut my bleeding windpipe.
Fuck.
Then the guy in front just took a couple of steps forward, just to absolutely give me a fantastic smack in the face. My kidneys are absolutely killing. Because that's where I took punishment. Then basically just told me it's about time you pack BNP in. You wouldn't bang some of that on my back, would you?
Yeah, sure. What is it?
Just don't get it on your hands and that. Just on bruised bits.
Christ almighty. God, that's bad, isn't it?
Yeah. Cheers.
Is that enough?
Yeah. Because it starts burning. Just make sure you don't get any on your hands.
Yeah, you can smell it, can't you?
If you get it on your hands and go to the toilet.
I don't know who's behind the attack, neither does Andy, but Nick Griffin is confident he knows.
But there's a different kind of thug around now. Again, it's not being used very often. Direct involvement by the state or people hired by Labour Party officials to do their dirty work for them. Andy Sykes, who has been heavily involved, not just in Bradford, but also in our campaign in Keighley, he gets picked up by two very capable, very quiet, very well trained heavies and given a thoroughgoing roughing over. Where's Andy now? Stand up. This man has got some guts. He really... I spoke to him the next day after that happened and said, how are you? And he said, I'm bruised and battered and so on, but it's not going to put me off. It's made me more determined than ever to carry on with what I'm doing.
I felt a little bit embarrassed, to be honest. I'm getting applauded by all these people who think that I'm BNP through and through, when they have no idea. You know, they've just got no idea. Nick Griffin's obviously got no idea.
Let's see if we can find some of these pictures.
After what happened to Andy, Nick Griffin warns members not to retaliate if they are attacked. He also reminds them not to use a website called Redwatch. The site publishes the personal details of left-wing opponents in order to intimidate them into silence. Andy introduces me to Mark Collett, the man widely tipped to become a future leader of the BNP. When council candidate Dave Midgley asks him about the Redwatch site, Collett doesn't quite toe the party line.
I was looking at a website the other day and someone mentioned about the Redwatch. What are these? What is it? From what I gathered, looking on tonight, it's NFL. They run it, don't they?
The NF run it. It's basically just a hit list of Reds that need 20.
That guy wants it big time.
The man Dave Midgley thinks needs it big time is a local councillor.
We've been banned from putting anything on anymore because our association with them, what they're trying to do is not, our association with them isn't hurting us in the public side because the public don't know who Redwatch is. But the idea of Redwatch, the idea of why the Reds are talking about it so much, is to get violent Reds back into the fold, twatting us. And it's what we don't need.
That's what Searchlight said I read tonight.
What we don't need here, and what they're trying to do, is to promote a street war. And we can't afford a war now.
Could it be arranged that he goes onto the Redwatch site?
It could if you send it. If you send them a scanned picture, it's nothing to do with me.
Well, it's got. I'm going to say it's all you do. Just send it to the thing. Because it's
actually an explanation of who he is, where he lives.
But who would we send it to?
You've just got to send it to their contact address on their thing. Scan a picture, email it to them, say who he is, what he's been doing, a bit of background about him, they'll pop it up.
Midgley tells me later that he thinks better of sending the councillor's picture to Redwatch. Collett admits to taking pictures of left-wing opponents, but he denies ever sending them to the Redwatch website.
The real target of his visit was outside. The British National Party...
The mainstream parties used the North West to plug into the threat posed by the BNP.
Mr Howard told his audience of Tory supporters it was time to confront them.
Let's not mince our words. The policies of the British National Party are based on bigotry and hatred. They are utterly alien to our political traditions. The answer doesn't lie with a bunch of thugs dressed up as a political party.
2 weeks later, I'm in Burnley, where the former leader of the BNP, John Tyndall, is speaking at a party meeting.
Very recently, Burnley had the dubious honour of a visit from Mr. Michael Kent, otherwise known as Michael Howard. Mr. Hecht, Howard, goes on to say, the policies of the British National Party are based on bigotry and hatred. Its approach is entirely alien to our political traditions. As for alien, Mr. Howard says, alien to our, and I underline our, political traditions. Who is Mr. Howard speaking of when he talks about our? Who is Mr. Howard speaking of when he talks about, he uses the word alien? How far do Mr. Howard's roots in this country of ours go back? His father and mother came here as Jewish immigrants from Romania in the late 1930s. This interloper, this immigrant or son of immigrants, who has no roots at all in Britain, has the effrontery to talk to us about what is alien. It is not the BNP that is alien.
I'm appalled to hear such rampant anti-Semitism in modern Britain, but from Tyndall it's no surprise, given his past in the National Socialist movement.
Industrial north of England.
When he finishes savaging Mr. Howard, he moves on to Africans and Asians.
While this part of Britain was the industrial centre of the world, what was happening in Africa and Asia? The people there were squatting for century upon century upon century on the ground of Africa, and what did they produce apart from black magic, witchcraft, voodoo, cannibalism and AIDS? That is what they have given to the world. And nationalism will come to the fore, nationalism will come to victory in this country, and we will build again a country that is great, strong, proud, free and white.
Although Tyndall is supposed to be part of the old guard, his speech abusing black people receives the loudest round of applause I've yet heard at a BNP meeting. Afterwards, he's very interested in my origins, but doesn't guess I'm from the BBC.
You're not Yorkshireman or Lancastrian, are you? No, from Nottingham. Nottingham? I thought you were from further south than that. No, Nottingham.
We also asked the barrister to advise us on John Tyndall's speech. He says the words are clearly threatening, abusive or insulting, and their purpose can only be described as that of stirring up racial hatred, an offence which could land him in jail. Steve Barkham invites me on a night out. By 10 o'clock we've all had a few drinks. We tried to get into a club, but as a group of lads we're refused entry.
Won't let groups of more than 3 lads in. You don't like the fucking look of you either. Racist place this, mate. Newspaper tomorrow. Racist, pack your shit up. Fucking Asian news and fuck off. Come on, get you fucking black. Here, where's scum? Don't charge him with fucking one. Well, what the fuck are we scum for? This is our country. We fucking belong here. We fucking belong here. What the fuck are you doing here? What am I doing here? You're fucking working in mills, you bastards. Come on. Get yourselves off that. You fucking make me sick. Eh? Pack it. Pack it. Sake of it. Your mum's a black bitch. Your mum's a black bitch. That's why you're fucking black. I'll be a pride in your fucking nation.
According to the barrister advising us, Barkham on that night committed a racially aggravated public order offence, which carries a maximum prison term of 2 years. Mark Collett invites me to his home. He wants to talk about leaflets. I want to talk about immigration.
Some Asian corner shop owners, they've lived here since the 1950s. They've paid tax all their life, they've worked hard, they've never screwed anyone over. You know, they've got an English accent. They speak English. You know, they've done everything that you would expect a normal British person to do, and played the game. And then, why would anyone have a problem with that? The people you got a problem.
This is the man who I'd earlier heard tell a meeting that Britain is being destroyed by immigration. So I'm surprised by his change in tone. I learned later from Andy that he too suspects me. Another meeting, another pub. Tonight Nick Cass, who's standing as a candidate in the European elections, represents the more modern, respectable face of the BNP.
People don't vote in this country, not because they're satisfied with what's going on, because they don't feel that they've got another option. We've got to show them that we're capable of being that other option, and the only way of doing that is by getting on the doorstep, talking to these people, making them aware that we're not what the media says we're like. We're not thugs, we're not this, we're not that, we're just normal British people who care about what's going on in this country and want to put things right.
But when Mark Collett takes the podium, his speech is anything but respectable. I hear nothing of his apparent approval of hard-working immigrants. only insults and wild exaggeration.
Hundreds of thousands of these Muslim asylum seekers are coming to this country every year, and they're adding to their ranks. They're building their supplies and they're working against us. And we're bringing these people into the country. And when they come here, what do they get? Well, they get a house for a start. They get their rent, their raise, everything paid for. They get £4 checks to go and buy a car. Isn't it unacceptable to make these people use buses? They've come into this country, they can't speak English, so rather than making them struggle on the buses or on a taxi, we'll give them a car. Now there'll be some people who read what I was saying tonight, and they'd say, Mark, you're full of hate. And I'd turn around to them and say, yeah, I am. We all are. I'll tell you this, right? I honestly don't hate asylum seekers. These people are cockroaches, and they're doing what cockroaches do. Because cockroaches can't help what they do, they just do it. Like cats meow and dogs bark. They do it because they are what they are, and they'll do what they do. The people I hate are the white politicians that have sold us down the line. When we come out of that count with 20 candidates, we'll have 100 people on the street that night, and we won't be outnumbered this year, and we're not going to be pushed around.
Clap some backies!
People who are very conscious of the fact that there are laws to prevent incitement to racial hatred are very conscious of the fact that to correct yourself is to say, I don't hate these people, I just don't like the people who've actually made it possible for them to come here. I don't see how we can be calling people cockroaches and seeking to talk about them in such ways if we're not intending on promoting racial hatred. And I think it's a very unsophisticated way of trying to exonerate yourself from likely prosecution.
The barrister advising us agrees. He says Collett's words are clearly threatening, abusive or insulting. It is impossible on any objective assessment of his words to conclude that he was doing anything other than intending to stir up racial hatred. I watch Collett's speech with Steve Barkham. I feel he's stirred up. He's also more comfortable with me because he believes my story that I'm a football hooligan.
Can you imagine, in June, sun beating down, lager, British everywhere. You get some top lads from every fucking hooligan from there. As long as he...
I believe he now trusts me enough to tell me the truth about what really happened on the afternoon of the Bradford riots. I checked out his story. These police photos confirm that he's present at a Bradford pub with some members of the National Front. He's in confrontational mood. An Asian man runs towards the pub and is attacked. 3 white men and the victim were later convicted of a fray. Barkham escaped prosecution.
I assaulted him. Right, that was the fucking thing. I assaulted him. Okay, I knocked him out on the floor, I kicked him out conscious. I gave him a good fucking eye because that's what he asked for. And he got it. It might not have been me, it might have been you or you, it might be somebody else, but he came in there and he was arguing, he wanted to fight with fucking white lads. White lads ran outside and they all fucking scarpered, well, most of them scarpered. Few left, few of us, let's have a fight, let's fucking do it. So we had a fight, good do. 6 months later I'm on fucking bail and he's getting shown photographs of us, me and my mates, Spiderman lads, who beat you up, mate, who beat you up. And he picked out somebody else by accident. It was me who actually did it to him, but he couldn't fucking remember. He picked out somebody else.
4 days later, I'm back on the campaign trail with Barkham. What he tells me now is even more alarming.
I've only ordered the old anarchists fucking cookbook off the internet.
Have you?
How to make explosives. Let's have some of that. I'll be fucking doing that soon, mate, I tell you. Regardless. Did a fucking proof that you are, lad, fucking £22 it is.
£22?
How to make fucking homemade
explosion. Let's have some. Custard dusting.
Custard what?
Custard dust.
Oh,
Fucking mixed with like water and that, you know what I mean? Custard. That's fucking explosive.
is it really?
I never knew it was until I started reading about that sort of thing. You float it in the air, you put a light to it and it fucking blows up.
Fucking hell.
Fucking propane gas. Have you done that?
Propane gas?
Yeah.
What kind of explosion can you get from that?
Propane's fucking awesome, isn't it?
Jesus.
What are you going to do? You're not going to... How many of our brown brothers are you?
I'm one or two. I'll tell you what, I really honestly.
Makes me wonder, you know, sometimes I think about whether democracy is the right way to do things.
It's fucking bollocks. But do it, don't you?
Yeah.
I'm ready for a fucking war though, man, get myself
Had a bit of a scare today. I received a call about an hour before I was about to go out to a meeting from my boss, and my boss told me that a colleague of mine at the BBC had received a telephone call. Someone claiming they were from the British National Party and that they knew there was an infiltrator from the BBC. I was obviously concerned that I could be walking into a setup.
This is Keith Deliverance.
Paul Cromie, the Bradford BNP chairman, warns against being candid with reporters.
Well, when I talk to the press, it's question and a very basic answer, and I try to steer away from talking about blacks or packies or anything else like that, because I don't give them ammunition to fire.
You know, about we danced in the mosques and we danced in the something. So tell me what else we did. We danced on the grasses and we danced in the
mosques. We danced in the...
Well, so we danced in the grasses and we danced in the mosques.
We danced in the grasses and we danced in the mosques. The imam and the mother said it was a dross.
They were really friendly, offered me a drink. Were pleased to see me, and at the end of the meeting actually asked me if I would consider standing as a candidate for the British National Party in Bradford.
But we've got to be absolutely certain, this is why we're here tonight, that those candidates are going to stand. I'm hoping Jason's going to have a go.
Of course, I have no intention of standing. The TUC is planning to put out thousands of anti-BNP leaflets. I go to a pub in Keighley, where branch chairman John Joy sets out a plan to stop them.
If the TUC come here with all this literature and everything else, it's got to be arriving by something, that's it. They just block them, we don't have to know bad. I mean, terrorism's good, isn't it? Let's find out where they are, just burn the fucking wagon down. It's illegal, it's just a case of saving them a lot of work.
Council candidate Chris Kirby agrees to take part. He plans to ask a friend to phone the TUC to find out where they're meeting.
I'll ask her a phone on a mobile if you're interested. It'd be better for a woman anyway. Yeah.
The call is made and the BNP are given a location. They find a van and check it out, but they don't attack it. They suspect it's a decoy, and they don't want any bad publicity so close to the elections. Even so, the barrister says my footage reveals evidence of a conspiracy to commit criminal damage. The offence is completed when the plan is made, even if it's never carried out. All who join the agreement are guilty. It's a jailable offence. It's St George's Day. I'm with Steve Barkham. He's in high spirits. Barkham now trusts me so completely that after a game of pool, he tells me even more lurid details of his attack on an Asian man.
I hit him, and as it happened, he's just gedumbled over. I hit him again, and he's fucking down, he's out. Kicking him, kicking away. How did it feel when you're kicking and fucking dragging me out? Fantastic. And dragged me inside. So I'm like inside, and I'm side touch, fucking fantastic. I'm looking out the window, he's not moving. Coppers are like lifting him up, and he's not moving. His arms are all fucking flapping, his head's down, blood coming out of his head. I looked down at his shoe, and I was just covered in blood all over his shoes and that.
The barrister says this unequivocal confession is an admission of causing grievous bodily harm with intent. This is a particularly serious offence which carries a maximum of life imprisonment, although a sentence of 7 years is more likely. Two days after St George's Day, the BNP attracts national news coverage when Jean-Marie Le Pen, the leader of France's Front National, visits Britain to help Nick Griffin launch the Euro election campaign. BNP VIPs are invited to a private dinner in his honour. I'm now part of the inner circle and take my place at the event, which the BNP believes heralds its arrival as a major player on Europe's right wing. It's 10 past 3 in the morning, and I've got back from the Anglo-French patriotic dinner out in Four Crosses, out Welshpool Way. I'm not even sure where the hell it was in the end. Absolutely incredible day. Never experienced a day like it. I was so nervous before I went out. Absolutely. Andy and I went over and we picked up Chris Beverley, who's the West Yorkshire organiser.
Chris. Yeah, nice one. I've got mine as well.
Beverley had got a telephone call saying that it had kicked off in Manchester at the press conference that Le Pen and Griffin had been. He asked me whether I'd got any weapons in the car.
So you don't have any weapons?
No, no weapons.
When I say weapons, I'm not expecting you to have a fucking sword, but you know what I mean? You can have things that you're allowed to have in your car, like jacks and stuff.
Just stopped off at the service station on our way to the RV point. Chris Beverley, just over the road, just asked me if we'd got any weapons in the back of our car because he was worried about filthy red scum attacking him. I'm going to go back out there now, get back in the car, and then we're going to go to the rendezvous point.
But then we set off again and we were driving, and the car started to make some really strange noises, and I thought, oh my god, what's this? Pulled off, and it just started to overheat, and it just caught on fire.
Oh, shall I ring you?
It's on fire. Fuck. Yeah, get your stuff out.
And I thought, oh my god, this can't be happening. This cannot be happening to us.
Your engine's blown. It's oil and shit.
You got no weapons at all in this car?
No.
I got in our car and we drove off, and drove through a number of police checks.
I'm going to go straight through.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Police everywhere.
Yes.
Then we got to this field, and then there were a number of British National Party security. There's a security team out, and we were driving in, and I just didn't know what to expect. It was really, really apprehensive. Andy was too. Told me that he'd been on the toilet half the morning.
You do look smart, Andy.
Thought we were going to be searched. There was none of that. Fantastic. So managed to get all the secret film equipment in, straight through. All the usual suspects were there. And got our table.
Chris, there's a few sly pictures of all the journos as well.
Yes, well done.
Why are you taking ones of us? Just in case, you never know what they might write.
The Toastmaster said that the two leaders were coming in. Jean-Marie Le Pen of the Front National and Nick Griffin of the British National Party. and we should all be upstanding, so we all stood up. You've got two leaders to the far right coming in through that door to a huge round of applause, and they came in like kings, greeting their subjects. Then the speeches came. Jean-Marie Le Pen spoke.
L'immigration de masse est le plus grand danger que notre continent ait jamais rencontré dans son histoire. Britain forever! Vive la France!
And then Nick Griffin.
If they dare to show this event on television, millions of people are going to think, whoa, we thought this was a party of back streets and smoky pubs and lager and all the rest of it. And wow.
I was so apprehensive at the start of the day, but at the end of it, you know, came through it.
Thank you, Mr. Pen.
Click eating tomorrow. Cool. Another meeting in Click Eating or wherever. But it'll soon be over. Oh, that's it. The BNP has 10 candidates standing for local council election in Bradford. No one from the BNP is standing in the ward where Andy lives.
I've done my job right. Yeah. Should have been possibly 20 candidates on my standing in this area, and I've stopped more than half, so I'm happy. I'd have been happier if they want any candidate standing.
June the 11th, and local election votes are being counted across Yorkshire. Got my invitation, guest of Stuart Williams, and also got my rather nice looking BNP rosette, which I'm going to be wearing. It's the second time the man who says he wants to kill Muslims and attack mosques has stood for election.
What do you think about all this democracy like?
Oh, bollocks.
What would you do?
No democracy in Britain. What would I do? Close borders.
What?
Close borders.
What?
Close the borders.
Close the borders.
So you've got 2 weeks to get out.
Stuart Paul Williams, 877.
The Liberal Democrats win. Williams increases his vote, and he's only 77 behind the Conservatives, who come second.
And I hereby declare that the...
But for the first time ever, the BNP gets councillors in Bradford, taking 4 seats. 2 of them are in Keighley, where Nick Griffin launched his controversial anti-paedophile campaign.
Neil Kirby.
Among the other successful BNP candidates is Jim Luthwaite.
James Luthwaite, Max Cummings.
Charges that have been levied at you that you are fascist and Nazi. How do
We've
you
been
respond
subjected
to
to a campaign of vituperation and defamation practically without parallel. But obviously the electorate are not taken in, and that is the important thing. At the end of the day, it's their decision.
This is the man who earlier told me that he believes in deporting Muslims. Later, I go for a drink with the newly elected councillor.
I'll fight tooth and nail to make sure everybody speaks English. That is, you know, no, I'm not having Gujarati speaking communities, Punjabi speaking communities, Kashmiri radio stations. That is the road to perdition. We will end up with a Balkan war situation. No, we all speak English. That is the basic line. I don't care if you're Ukrainian, Polish, Italian, or whatever, learn English. That is the basic line. If you don't want to learn English, well, piss off.
Meanwhile in Leeds, the man who describes asylum seekers as cockroaches is confident of being elected, but he has a nervous wait.
Collett, Mark Adrian, British National Party, 949. Graham, Ronald, Labour Party.
Although Collett didn't get elected to Leeds Council, the BNP polled nearly 127,000 votes across Yorkshire and Humberside in the European elections. That's an 8% share of the vote, but still not enough to win a seat in the European Parliament.
But the vote increased so dramatically, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, it was.
If our vote had actually gone down, then that's a disaster. It's not a disaster doubling your vote and failing to get in. That says to me that these bastards have screwed us. At the end of the day, We'll be back.
BNP hopes for a seat in the European Parliament now rest on the leader Nick Griffin. He's in Manchester and he's surrounded by dark-suited heavies. They even escort him to the toilet. When the results are finally announced for the North West, the BNP polls nearly 135,000 votes. That's a 6.4% share. But again, it's not enough, and Griffin and his entourage leave in a huff before the results are formally declared. Across the country, the BNP quadrupled its vote. 750,000 people voted for them. The highest vote ever for a far-right party in the UK. Although it failed to win a significant number of seats, the results are a substantial leap forward for the BNP.
We've got to do a lot more in this country to try and deal with the issues of racial prejudice, bigotry, ignorance, and hatred, and how that contributes to people having very warped views of how they can just take people out and exterminate them. It's almost a throwback to Nazism, and we've all got to be concerned and frightened by what's going on.
They'll probably call me a traitor, but I can question that and say a traitor to what? You know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not the traitor, they're the traitors.
I've heard council candidate Stuart Williams boast again and again that he would like to kill Muslims. I've recorded Steve Barkham confessing to grievous bodily harm. Council candidate Dave Midgley confessing to racially aggravated harassment. And I've recorded newly elected councillor Chris Kirby taking part in a conspiracy to commit criminal damage. I've recorded speeches by John Tyndall, the man who founded the British National Party. Mark Collett, a rising star within the movement. And its leader, Nick Griffin, all inciting racial hatred. All of our evidence is available to the police and Crown Prosecution Service.
Nick Griffin will be interviewed on Newsnight at 10:30 on BBC Two. If you have been affected by racism, then please call the BBC Action Line on 0800 88 88 09 for sources of support and further information. Lines are open from 7:30 a.m. until midnight. All calls are free and confidential.